All right, so we are going to go over how to use the scale, your food scale, in the most efficient way, the easiest way. If you're using lots of different dishes and all that, you're probably not using it right. Let me start to share my screen. Why can't I? Oh, here we go. So how to track macros, utilizing the scale in just an easy, efficient way. My tips and tricks and just kind of like the basics 101s. If you've never used a scale, if you've never tracked food before, this is your video. So there's two buttons on the scale. If your scale has more buttons, you only need two. One is unit and one is tare. Okay, so you should have one unit button and one tare button. The tare button might be the same as on and off for this one. This one is. So just find the tare button, find the unit button. That's all you need. You need two buttons. So unit is what switches, from grams to ounces to milliliters to fluid ounces to pounds, yada yada. All you need to use is grams and ounces. That is it. Okay, and there's two types of ounces. Like I said, there's like the fluid ounces one and regular ounces. All you'll need is regular ounces and grams. That is it. You don't need to use milliliters, anything else. Two buttons on the scale, two units, grams and ounces. And then the tare button, super important. So the tare brings the scale to zero, no matter what. So I can have this scale, I can have it on, I could put 100 pounds worth of things on this scale. When I put tare, it goes down to zero. So that if I add one extra thing, if I add one extra pound, it's just logging that 1 pound, although I had a shit ton of things on the scale. Okay, so the tare button will always bring it back to zero. So this is what you'll use in between each food item as you add them to your plate. So if you are making salmon, rice, broccoli, you put the plate on the scale, you hit tare, so it's at zero. Okay, so now we can weigh exactly how much salmon you put on the plate, 4 ounces. Perfect, hit tare, so it's at zero. Now we are going to put rice on your plate, 100 grams of rice, hit tare, so it's at zero. So you're taring in between each thing that you put on your plate, but you don't need to take things on and off the scale. You don't need to take the plate on and off. You don't need to do any addition or subtraction, okay? So 2 buttons on the scale, unit and tare. That's all you'll need. 2 units on the scale, which we just went over, ounces and grams. Ounces is used for meats. Grams are used for literally everything else, okay? So if you're measuring salmon, steak, chicken, turkey, that's when I would say use ounces. That's also, it doesn't really matter though. You also could still use grams if you wanted to. I use ounces for meats, and I use grams for everything else. And then grams and milliliters, by the way, convert to the same number. So if you're weighing something that's liquid, like coffee creamer, ketchup, whatever, anything that when you look on the back, it's telling you that the serving size is in milliliters. 4 milliliters is 4 grams. 10 milliliters is 10 grams. So they convert to the same. So I like to still just stick with grams and ounces and not even add milliliters in there, just to like to keep everything the same, as simple as possible, okay? We are not ever going to use cups, tablespoons, teaspoons, half a cup, quarter cup. You don't need that. You're adding way more things. You're making it way more complicated. Also, those things are not accurate. You could scoop a half cup of oats, and then you could weigh 40 grams of oats, and they'll be totally different. Although, half a cup is supposed to be 40 grams or whatever. So let's just stick with utilizing the scale. You don't need to pull out your teaspoons, your tablespoons, your cups, just grams, just ounces, okay? And then there's 2 ways to measure. All right, so we got 2 buttons on the scale. We got 2 units of measurement, and we got 2 ways to measure. So 2 ways to use the scale. One way is in positives, and one way is in negatives. So positives is when you add food to your plate. So like that example before, if I take this, I add a bowl, I hit tare, and now I add 100 grams of rice, right? So now the scale would say 100 G. However, I could also use the scale in negatives. So that means taking food out of its original container. So I could take this entire scale, I could tare it out to 0, put the entire jar of peanut butter right on this. I would take the top off. So now we have a full jar of peanut butter, and I'm going to tare it out so we're at 0. And I can scoop it out. So if I scoop out 10 grams, now the scale is going to say negative 10 grams. Or if I'm pouring coffee creamer and I have the entire thing of coffee creamer here, I have the cap open or off, I tear it out to 0. I pour coffee creamer into my cup. I put it back on the scale. Now the scale will say negative 15 grams. Okay, so you can utilize the scale in positives or negatives. I highly recommend using both. All right, so those are the two things that you need to know for each category. And that's it. Now, step by step, which, maybe a video demonstration here would be easy, but hopefully I am explaining this very clearly. If there's any questions, please feel free to interrupt me or ask at the end or whatever. So step 1, turn the scale on, press on, okay? Perfect. Step 2, put the scale either in grams or ounces. So that's when you're going to utilize the unit button. Decide what unit are you measuring, either grams or ounces. Ounces for meats, grams for everything else. Step 3, put whatever dish you're using on the scale. If you're making cereal, put the bowl on the scale and then hit tare, right? We're not trying to, I don't care how much the bowl weighs. It doesn't matter. So put the bowl on, hit tare, so the scale's at 0. And then add each food item to the bowl, okay? So that would be if you're using positives. So we got the bowl, we're gonna add our cereal. Let's add 50 grams of cereal. Beautiful, log that. Tare it out now. So now you have the bowl with cereal and the scale says 0 because you hit tare. Now we're gonna pour 100 grams of almond milk. Okay, so we're making beautiful cereal and we can now log 100 grams of almond milk. Or this is your option, you could do negatives. So if you wanted to take the entire box of cereal and put it on the scale and tare it out, so you're at 0, and then pour out 40 grams of cereal that way, you could do that. So this is your option of either utilizing positives or negatives. Step 5, input the measurement of food into your food tracking app. So whether you're using MyFitnessPal or the Frequency app, you got to do it right then and there, right? It would be pretty crazy if you just somehow remembered that you poured 40 grams of cereal and 100 grams of almond milk. This is why I got to be on your ass sometimes if you're like, oh, well, I just got to log my stuff from yesterday. How accurate is it going to be, right? If you're logging your stuff after the fact, just utilize it. Just have your phone open. All of this should take maybe 60 more seconds than if you were just making the food normally, right? Because you're not doing anything different. You're literally still putting cereal in the bowl and milk in the bowl. You just have a scale underneath and you're pressing tare. Okay, so it's not adding any additional time. And then I would have your phone open and I would just log as you're going, be able to adjust as you're going. So yeah, and then step 6, tare out the scale to 0 and weigh the next item of food. So basically step 6 is just repeat and rinse and repeat, until you're done making your dish or adding your foods. So if you're meal prepping, or I should say batch cooking, meaning that you have all of your foods already cooked and prepared ahead of time and you're making a dish, making your meal from your prepared foods. This is why it's super easy, right? Just scoop out your prepared rice, put it on your dish. You'll know exactly how many grams you're using, ounces of chicken or whatever that is, okay? And then just to kind of highlight this, so a nutrition label looks just like this. So when it says serving size and it says 21 grams here, so this is always what we're going to look at is what unit of measurement it's using in these parentheses here. Can you guys see my mouse, by the way? Or am I just, yeah, okay, cool. So this is going to show you how much the item is suggesting is a serving size. You don't need to be limited to that. Okay, so let's say this is, I don't know what this would be, something that's just carbs. This looks like a date to me or something, right? So 21 grams of a date would be 17 grams of carbs, no fats, no protein. You don't need to limit yourself to this. This is where you have the flexibility of logging your food. So if you want to look at that and you're trying to, utilize one serving size, then sure, you could I don't know, chop up the dates until you're at 21 grams or something, but you can also just add it up on the scale and log it. So anyway, just pointing out this here, this is where you might see liquids will say milliliters, but 21 grams is going to be the same as 21 milliliters, as we know. Obviously, we're probably all familiar with the calories at the top, big and bold. And then the other bold items on the nutrition label are going to be your macros. So just the 3 macros. Fats are going to be at the top, carbs are going to be somewhere in the middle, and proteins. Now, what I really want to point out here that I get a lot of questions on, no 20 grams of chicken. So if you take this scale and you put 20 grams of chicken on your dish, that does not equal 20 grams of protein. That's just one of the English language sort of things going on, just like how there's fluid ounces, right? There's 16 ounces in a pound and 8 ounces in a cup. Just one of the human language things. It's grams of protein is not the same grams of weight on a scale. Honestly, grams of carbs, grams of fats, it doesn't even matter if you say grams. You can just say 10 protein, 10 carb, 10 fat, because you're not going to be tracking your protein in anything else other than grams, but it does not correlate to the weight. So this is why it's important to know, okay, about 6 ounces of chicken would be about 30 grams of protein. And if you log things enough times, you'll be able to recite that off the top of your head. Okay, so tracking may only seem like new, confusing. You're not sure how much of anything is in anything, how many grams of protein is in this, how many grams of fat is in this. You don't know this because you haven't done it. So if you take 6 to 12 months of your life to track at least just the majority of foods that you're eating in the home, to get familiar with, oh, this is what a serving size looks like of peanut butter. This is what 6 ounces of chicken looks like. This is what 30 grams of protein of salmon looks like, so that you can start to learn, because eventually then you'll just be able to recite it off the top of your head. But yeah, I just wanted to point that out, that the grams here does not correlate to the grams that you are weighing. And then down here, we have our micronutrients. So macronutrients, the 3 big ones, fats, carbs, protein, and then micronutrients, things like vitamins, fiber, minerals, all that. We don't need to track those. Frequently asked questions. Weighing out cooking oils. So I made my dish, and I put olive oil in the pan before I made eggs, or I put olive oil, on the pan before I made my chicken sausage. Okay, perfect. Put the entire jar of olive oil on the scale first. Take the top off, tear it out so you're at 0. Then pour your olive oil. Now you see that you poured -8 grams. You can log that -8 grams. You need to be logging that. The oils that you're cooking with need to be tracked. Those are absolutely going to add up, okay? Measuring condiments and sauces. So I love to put some Chick-fil-A sauce on any meal. If you put Chick-fil-A sauce on the most boring meal, suddenly it tastes like Chick-fil-A. So I'd highly recommend doing that if you feel like you're not a very good cook, or things are tasting gross or whatever. Put your entire dish on here, your fully cooked chicken, rice, and broccoli, tear it out so it's at 0. Squeeze your Chick-fil-A sauce until you see, 10 grams of Chick-fil-A, 10 grams, whatever, or 4 grams, or however much you're putting on. Beautiful. We should absolutely be tracking all of our condiments, our ketchup, our sauces, or oils, whatever. Measuring things. Should I measure it raw or should I measure it cooked? This is very important. Measure everything cooked, okay? Measure pretty much everything cooked, unless you're in like some weird situation where you have to measure it raw, or I don't know, whatever. Majority of time, stick with measuring everything cooked except oats and pasta. So if you're making oatmeal, and I would weigh your oats first. I would weigh your oats before you cook it, because you're adding water to them. So we're not trying to weigh the water after the oats are cooked. So weigh your oats raw, and ideally weigh your pasta raw if possible. And that's just if, you're making a serving of pasta, and that's kind of the same idea, because the pasta absorbs water. So like 2 ounces of raw pasta versus 2 ounces of cooked pasta are going to be 2 totally different sizes. So if you can measure your pasta raw, try to do that. But if it's already cooked, there also should be a cooked or uncooked option. So if you're logging 2 ounces of uncooked pasta versus logging 2 ounces of cooked pasta, clarify that as you're searching it to log your food in your food tracking feature. Measuring coffee creamer, put your whole cup of coffee on the scale, hit tare so it's at 0 grams, pour the coffee creamer directly into your cup, and the grams that you see, will show right there. Again, that's absolutely something that needs to be tracked. So if you're going your whole day not tracking the olive oil you're cooking your sausage in, not tracking the Chick-fil-A sauce you're putting on top of your meals, not tracking the coffee creamer, and you're wondering why, you're not losing weight or whatever, I guarantee all of these things are adding up. That right there could be an additional 400 or 500 calories. All right, if you're eating out, how do I track this? How do I log this? How do I know how many grams, how many ounces that was? It's an educated guess, babe. It's an educated guess, okay? What if I'm eating at a friend's house? We have charcuterie, have wine, or I'm going to grandma's house and she's making lasagna. How do I log that? It's an educated guess, babe. We're not going for perfection. Nobody's gonna bring their scale to grandma's house and ask grandma how, much she, whatever, marinara sauce. Please don't do that. Don't be weird. That's very weird. So just educated guesses, okay? Use your best judgment. That's why when you are in the home and you do have the ability to log everything, to weigh everything, to utilize your scale, use that as a learning moment, so that then when you do go out, when you do go, eat at grandma's and have her cookies or whatever, you can kind of eyeball, you can kind of estimate, okay, I made, am eating 4 ounces of turkey at Thanksgiving because I know what 4 ounces of turkey looks like now because I've been weighing food at my house, when I can control it. Outside of your controlled environment, we're just guessing. And then again, just pointing out that grams in weight versus grams in your macros are different. Don't get that confused, please. Okay, that's all I got. Any comments, questions, concerns? Like I said, I feel like you guys are all kind of experienced girlies with tracking, but anything that you feel like could be helpful, anything that you didn't know? Nope. All right, cool. Well, thanks guys. Thanks for showing up. Please like the calendar in the call calendar links tab in the Discord if you haven't already, just so that you see when all the calls are this month. Just acknowledging messages that I post is, respectful, helpful, nice, lets me know that I'm not talking to an echo chamber. So that's it. That's all I got for you guys. Thanks again. Hope you have a lovely evening, and I'll see you later. Bye.